Hi everyone, Jasmine here from Redwood Financial, and this week's frequently asked question is how can I invest in green companies and initiatives? It's a really good question, and I think something that's definitely more and more on investors' minds. I think we're all becoming a lot more socially conscious and wanting to make sure that we're not doing any harm to the planet, and our investments should reflect those wishes in terms of wanting to make sure that we are creating a world that is sustainable and we're going to leave a healthy planet behind to the next generation. So it's definitely something that maybe 10, 15 years ago wasn't on the mind of many investors, but is definitely becoming something that is a lot more conscious for a lot of us. And the question is, when it comes to investing in green or ethical companies and initiatives, the first question is, how far do you want to go? Because there are completely ethical investments and portfolios that can be built to only exclusively invest in green companies or green initiatives or any other ethical remit or parameter that you want to set. There are also then other portfolios where they might have an element of your investment that's in a specific green or ethical fund, but then the rest of it is more mainstream investment strategies which aren't being confined by that green or ethical remit. So it's about, first of all, establishing what's the primary objective of that investment strategy, and do we want to apply it to all of the funds that you're investing or simply an element of the funds that you're investing. And then also it's about what are we most concerned about and how far do we want to take that green, ecological and sustainable remit in terms of things like ESG. And so we can look at, first of all, the provider. So the actual investment provider that's giving you the product. So let's say you're investing in an ISA or a pension. Are you particularly worried if that company is green and sustainable? Or are you worried about the fund manager underneath? And if that fund manager works for a company that is green and sustainable? Or do you just want to make sure that the underlying funds, the underlying stocks and companies that you're investing in are green and sustainable? Or do you want to have a remit that applies to everyone in that investment chain, making sure that right from the top level, who's providing you the product, down to the fund manager who's making the individual fund selection, and then finally those individual stocks and shares, do we want to make sure that every company involved is green, sustainable and acting in an ethical way towards the preservation of our planet, and bearing in mind things like ESG goals, and working again in line with UN targets with regards to preserving the planet and improving the planet's health. So we can go as deep as you want to in terms of that investment strategy. And so for a lot of clients, it's going to be very personal to them as to how they want to do that and achieve that. And that's why we have some fund managers that really do work from the top down in a very ethical, ecological way. And then other fund managers where it's just the underlying investment assets that are providing those investments into green companies or green initiatives. But it's also about then tempering that with risk to your money and also return, and making sure that we don't end up with all of our eggs in one basket. So diversification is still key. So we want to try and be as green as possible in all of those investment decisions, but without then taking exponentially more risk than is necessary with your portfolio. So it really is a balancing act, and that's why I recommend taking professional advice, whether it's from a financial planner like ourselves or another firm. Because yes, technically you could look to do some sort of self-investment platform where you pick and choose some of your own green companies or initiatives, but it really is a specialist area of investment, and it really does require that deeper conversation around the overall goal to make sure that you're not accidentally taking more risk with your money than you realize through selecting companies just purely through that lens of a green or ethical remit. We've got to look at the whole picture and bring everything together to form that investment strategy. So that's really what I would say to you, is if you want to have a specific look at green investments and green initiatives, talk to a financial planner and they will then work out with you what's the right parameters for that investment strategy, and they can then talk you through implementing it. I hope that helps answer the question, and I look forward to answering more of your questions next week.